And we're back. Thanks, podcasters, for staying tuned. We are back with part two, the Hitting Hardcourt podcast. And Jason's still hanging on with us, enjoying the sun where he's at. And we're talking a little bit of college basketball right now. And during the break, Jason, you were talking about how you'd like to see a little bit more parity as far as the talent that goes to respective NCAA schools. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we're on the MVP talk, and then we have nationally ranked players that are going into college, and then they do the one and done, and then eventually they move on. But
Right.
why do you? First of all, I got to ask you, why do you want to see parity in college basketball? I mean, personally, I hardly get to watch college basketball as it is, because it's during funky times during the day. And if I was a student, I'd be in class. If I wasn't, and like I'm working now, all these games are during these really funky times, and I just don't have time to watch them. So I really just want to see what the popular team is gonna be doing at the end of the season. If the popular team isn't really, popping, then what's the point of watching college basketball?
Well, I go for the parity in basketball because I'm giving them play right now, but ESPN, all they show is UNC, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, and whomever else. Occasionally, you see some of the West Coast Conference teams, WCC. They're just beginning to show you, because I think they have a contract with them now, but they're just beginning to show you Pac-12 teams. There was a point in time where I'm from the East Coast, but I either wasn't staying up to watch a West Coast game, or you weren't getting an opportunity to see it. I want to see some of these younger guys who are five-star players go to some of these teams where they aren't as known, because it gives these teams a little bit more play. It allows you to say, you know what, this team is, this guy is this good because of this, because he took this team who has very few people on it to the tournament.
See, I don't know. I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, but I don't know if I could tolerate, like, all of a sudden the top 50 for high school nationally ranked all of a sudden go to 50 different schools. And it's mainly because these top 50 kids are used to three things. They're used to attention, they're used to the allure of being on the team with the best people, and they're used to that TV time, the entertainment value. You got to understand, half of the kids that are coming out of these draft classes, their high school games are being televised. And if your high school games are being televised, you want to continue being in that limelight, and you want to go to a school that's got the limelight. I don't know. I mean, there's no way to convince a kid to change from going from UNC with the Tar Heels to UNC to North Carolina State, or to even more so East Carolina State. I don't see someone deciding to say, hey, I'm going to go to instead of going to a Division I school, I'm going to go to Morehouse and play.
That's a stretch.
But this is what I'm saying. I mean, you're talking about players that grow up around certain colleges. Like, I grew up the street for a little bit from UC from San Bernardino, and about an hour away from UC Riverside. But I wasn't going to go to UC Riverside to play ball. I was looking at going to USC, UCLA, because if I wanted to get better, I felt that being part of those schools would make me even better and see where my ceiling is at. Whereas if you're playing for someone like North Dakota State or Miami of Ohio, you might not see how good you could be or how good you should be when you're trying to get to the next level.
But then again, look at what happens when you get to the tournament, and some of these big name teams go down to some of these little known guys. And this little known guy had, perfect example. Who knew of Damian Lillard when he played for Weber State? Not many people knew about Damian Lillard for Weber State, but guess what he did? He made noise in the tournament. So imagine if Damian Lillard at Weber State had a guy like Ivan Robb from Cal. he had another top. He had a top 5 in the country big man to throw the ball to. You would have probably knew about Lillard a year earlier than you did because he has a guard. He has a big man. I mean, mind you, Lillard went to school 4 years at Weber State. Imagine his coach or his university landing a top 5 big. You know,
I think we're looking, and it's kind of hard to try to dive too deep into this subject without having to do a whole separate podcast completely. True. I think we're not giving it enough of the gravity that it deserves. But I can tell you this for sure, that there is probably some coach that is a D1 program that's probably part of like the Mid-East Atlantic Conference or part of the Ohio Valley Conference that's sitting, or the Big Sky Conference, that's probably wondering how can we get this top kid there, but it's probably looking at the university itself and saying, we just don't have enough here in order to entertain this kid. And I think that's probably what it comes down to. I have this strong feeling that, coming out of high school, going to some of these programs is more like, hey, how long do you think we can afford to babysit this kid?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, before he decided to go play overseas, Moutier was signed to play with SMU, so it's a possibility of these things happening. Guys like Jaylen Brown, and he played for Cal. It's a power conference, but it isn't a big name school. I'm not saying, hey, let's all load up and go to San Diego State, or let's all go play for University of Seattle. I'm basically saying, let's go. I want a real challenge. I want to challenge myself. I want to stand out and become the National Player of the Year because I averaged 28 and 13, and I played for North Dakota State, and I went up in the tournament and I beat this guy and this team and that team. And they had everybody, but I
was thinking about using the tournament as a reference point as to how you can say, you know what, you don't need all the guys. You can just get a guy and build your team. But then the teams that surpass other teams in the tournament, I mean, when you look at the Cincinnati Bearcats a few years ago when they went on their pretty deep run to the Elite Eight, it was a compilation of sophomores and juniors that were beating these freshman level teams. I mean, when Duke went out the first round, when they were a 2 seed versus a 15 seed, that was the Seth Curry team.
True.
That was a team full of freshmen. So to say that I don't think that these schools are necessarily missing the mark. It's sort of chicken and the egg, which came first, because you need a good program in order to attract good players, but you need good players in order to build a good program. So which one comes first? So do you go through a bunch of seniors and just continue to long develop the program like Boeheim at Syracuse or Krzyzewski over at Duke for a long time? You just have one coach just sit there? Or do you kind of get tired of it and essentially say, you know what? If I'm like Shaka Smart and I just decide to say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and move over to Texas for right now. I'm going to go ahead and leave where I was at. And then I'm going to start to try to redevelop a program. See, I think that's kind of hard because if you're Shaka Smart, then you're like, all right, Texas is a big program. Durant was the last big name to come out of here. Mm-hmm. I'm a big name because of the team I've taken to the Final Four with VCU. Now I can probably develop that same system. And I think, again, it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing because VCU now isn't doing much. Butler's back. Hoiberg, when he left his program,
Iowa
State's back. But I think that's more of a testament to having to develop that churn first. So, are concerned, I don't think it's the players. I think maybe it's the coaching thing.
I mean, you could be right, though. You could be right in that sense because maybe it is, but maybe it's a guy. Maybe these guys are going to places where they know that they're going to go to the league. I mean, look at Kentucky, Kentucky. Their freshmen are one and dones. You can't. There's no way around it. Those guys are going 1 year. They're going to the league. But then again, you look at a guy like The guy, his name is Markel Fultz. He's playing point guard or two guard at Washington, putting up numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Putting up about 25,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to basically be a top. He's going to be a top 3 draft pick. It's just a matter of where. I feel like he took on the challenge. Washington is a Pac-12 team, but they're a lesser known Pac-12 team. They haven't had anybody good come out of Washington since Brandon Roy. Or then again, I mean, because what do you call it? I personally feel as though the jury's still out on Marquise Christ. So Brandon Roy was the man, and until he wasn't anymore. And I feel like these guys are looking at it like a lot of these guys are coming from the South or they're coming from the North, because basketball on the West Coast has become crazy now. Living out here in LA, I can see where it became, how it is it's jumping. But these guys are loading up and playing for one team. We want to go win the title. We all want to go get a big name in the NBA. But I feel like sometimes they're stunting their own growth by all playing together. You're not going to get everybody can't get the same amount of time and the same amount of exposure playing for Kentucky. Jason Tatum in Duke he's a beast. But imagine if he went and said, hey, I'm going to play for Kentucky. Would he still be who he is right now?
Doubt it.
Right. So I'm thinking, I'm not saying the top 50 guys in the country in high school go play for the top 50 team, schools in the country. I'm saying the top 50 guys go possibly spread out and go pay for the top 30, maybe even, the top 25, show some parity, bring some, because if you look at it back in the 60s and the 70s, maybe early 80s and early 90s, a lot of these teams were really good. A lot of these teams who aren't known now, they were good then because they had guys who, look at UNLV. UNLV known for Stacey Augmon and Larry Johnson. Who's known to come out of UNLV since then that's really well known. You can't think of anybody. But if you go play there and you go make that team what it is, you have to go lay that foundation. Someone has to not be afraid to go say, you know what, I'm a top 5 in the country. I'm going to UNLV and I'm gonna lay down the foundation.
I'll see. There in cases is a bigger problem. It's now become, you're now talking about incubating a top level prospect out of high school instead of building a program that is magnetic, essentially in the field for bringing in other players. I like where your head is at as far as have a player that's great, go into a program, make a name for yourself, go try it out, you'll still be great. However, can that guy, that one player, help build other players around him to create enough noise for that program to where other players in the new draft class start to come in behind that? And can that coach be represented enough in the way that team plays in order to say, this is the program that you will play, this is how we will play. If you think that you are great and you can fit this program and continue to make us better, this is a place for you, to a top 50 prospect. I don't think that that singular player has enough moxie in order to do all of that, because that's a lot to put on one player's shoulders. They're already going through being the guy on campus, being the guy on the team. And for some teams, like a UNLV still gets games. Arizona gets plenty of games. I mean, the Pac-12 network gets plenty of games. West Coast Conference, like you said, they get some games. It's do they want to take on all that and be the leader of the team to say, hey, you got to make our guys better, and then say, hey, I'll be there when you're talking about looking in the other kids coming into your next draft class. I'll help you speak to them.
It's called being a coach, and it's called being the top player in the country. When you're a coach, that's what you do. You coach your guys up. If
I'm a baller, though, I just don't think that. I don't think that that's my concern. I think that basketball is my concern. I don't think anything else about building a program is going to be. Okay. Case in point, our new favorite subject, all of a sudden coming around your area in Los Angeles, Lonzo Ball. Tell me, do you think anyone wants to go to UCLA now?
I think that if your last name is Ball, you will be in UCLA for the next 3 years.
anyone not named Ball, do you think they want to go to UCLA?
I'll say yes. Because if you play like if you're going to get if LiAngelo Ball is going to play anything like his brother is, then you're going to get your shots. Because they're calling him the next Jason Kidd. His pop is calling him better than Steph Curry. And I mean, I need to see it before I can believe it. And
Well, see, if you need to see it before you can believe it, how can you convince my 17 or 18-year-old that's part of the top 50 that you know what, this is going to be the program that you want to be in? Because
you
I
know why?
personally wouldn't want my kid playing anywhere near that kid.
You
I
know
would say,
why? Because this is LA. This is LA, and you not only this LA, but you're playing for the name UCLA. I don't need to go get LiAngelo Ball to go tell you to come play here. I don't need LaMelo Ball to come say to come play here. I'm gonna get UCLA legend Baron Davis to tell you. I'm gonna get Russ to tell you. I'm gonna get Kevin Love to tell you. If that's the case, you're playing for the name on the front of your jersey. With all these other schools, LiAngelo Ball is playing for the name on the back of his jersey.
well,
And
see,
his father's yelling for it even more than he is.
I don't see that the whole concept now. I mean, now we may be getting away from the point of the fact that a fact of like building a program versus the state that the Balls have left this whole program, their futures, wherever they may be going, and the NBA itself in, where essentially we're talking about the player playing for themselves or the
Mhm.
player going into a good program, or the third option is a player saying, hey, I'm good. I want to go to a budding program and make it better again. Because UCLA is not going to get too far into this tournament if it's all about Lonzo Ball. It's not. They're not going to get too far into this tournament if dad keeps making these distractions.
I don't
I
think they're going
just
to get
think
that far
that,
in the tournament if his boy doesn't play.
and I
Because
think that
if I mean, then again, honestly, Steve Alpert's son can shoot the hell out of the ball. He can shoot that ball. So without LiAngelo giving him the rock, they were all right last year.
but who wants to be part of a program where the whole purpose of me being in this program is to be sideshow Bob to this spectacle that's going on right now?
I agree.
I want to go there to play basketball. I don't care about anything else if I'm a ball player. I'm definitely sure that any child of mine, male or female, will want to be part of a program that essentially says, well, here, come play basketball here. We don't worry about all that other stuff. Point
But
blank
then
and simple.
again, if that's the case, then that makes a little bit to my makes it goes a little bit to my point. Now I can sell some of these top 50 guys on coming to play here. Come play here because you ain't got to worry about something like that. I mean, if you want to be honest, Kentucky is the super team of college basketball. I mean, think about it. They're these teams are like he's got a super team over there. If they wait 1 year, Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins play together. You know what I mean? In Kentucky. So it's one of them things where I feel like you just basically, I mean, granted, LeVar Ball, I don't want to say he's digging his kid a hole, but I will say this. LaMelo Ball will have to back up with the talk that his dad is basically the case that his dad has made that he's the best player in the country. You got to back it up. And I feel like UCLA is going to go out. They're going to bow out of the tournament quickly because he's not that good. Not because of the talk. You can talk all you want. You can hype your kid up all you want, but I don't think he's that good. And that right there will show you in a heartbeat that, oh crap, do we have another 3 years of this going on? Because his dad is not going to stop talking until his kids are going out to leave the LA area. It's going to be a matter of time before he's going to say, I want LaMelo, I want Lonzo playing as a Laker. I want LiAngelo as a Clipper. And now I freaking want the younger one to play in Sacramento. He want all his kids in the California area. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that you got to live up to what you speak on. And because the father is basically speaking for the kid now got to live up to it. So good luck with that one.
Speaking of Lonzo to wherever the heck he ends up at, looking at the standings right now, bottom three in the East, Orlando, Philadelphia, and then Brooklyn, which has been mathematically eliminated from in the playoffs. And on the other end, you have New Orleans, who is still 4 games out of the 8th seed, Phoenix, and then Los Angeles. And so if you're looking lottery wise, if you're looking at all 6 of these teams,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually, let's not talk about Brooklyn only because nothing good is going on in Brooklyn right now. Absolutely nothing. There are, in my mind, the SMU, they have this moratorium on any other scholarships. No money's going into there because they spent it all. They're locked out possibly for another 1, maybe 2 years. So I would try to stay away from them as far as possible. But if you're looking at these 3 teams, and especially Philadelphia and Los Angeles, first of all, if you're the top 5 draft pick, what team is the most appealing to you?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, if I'm Lonzo Ball, I want to go play in Philly. You have a big man. You have 2 big men actually, and Embiid and Okafor. You have a small forward who's going to be a willing passer in Ben Simmons, and you got guys on the bench, T.J. McConnell and Rashawn Holmes, who are actually pretty good. So you can actually become really good in a well, I'm gonna say Philly's a small market. It's not as big as LA is, but it's a team where you can play quickly. I
Okay,
mean, playing
pause.
here in LA, you're going to get.
Let me stop you right there because 3 of those guys that you named are either not usable or injured right now. And I don't care if I have to completely tank at the draft at the combine. If it means that I don't get drafted by the Sixers, I would be totally grateful for that.
The Lakers are got all their guys healthy, and they're not that much better than the Sixers. So go figure. So I'm going to play with some guys. I'm going to play with a healthy group of guys who still can't play well, or I'm going to play with a bunch of guys who are actually going to be coming off of injuries and looking to prove something.
Well, I mean, yeah, Lakers had more like front office personnel issues, and they were trying to figure out their whole thing, and they still had injuries. Keep in mind that D'Angelo Russell, when he went out in the middle of the season, right after the Lakers had went on that huge streak, right before actually right before it started January, the Lakers were doing really well as far as playing wise. And then D'Angelo Russell got injured. They went on a losing streak. Lou Williams was scoring out of his mind, and yet they couldn't capitalize on that. And so, as far as the injury thing is concerned, their process, for me, seems a lot more appealing than Philadelphia's process because they can't seem to process a completely healthy season.
Can we really be honest for a second here? D'Angelo Russell isn't the point guard for the Lakers. And I feel like Magic Johnson is going to prove that immediately. He's going to look to move D'Angelo Russell for another pick. The only reason Lonzo Ball will probably play for the Lakers is because the Lakers have a top 3 protected pick. So they're guaranteed to get a good guard. They're guaranteed to get a good guy. I'm thinking if you can't get your hands on Lonzo Ball, you're going to get at least Josh Jackson. You're going to get Markelle Fultz, or you might even get Jason Tatum. And if you don't get those guys, and you want to go really good for it, you want to go for another one, the guy from North Carolina State, Dennis Smith, he's not that bad. So Lonzo Ball, yeah, you want Lonzo Ball. You aim for the moon, and if you don't make it, you land amongst the stars. Landing amongst the stars and getting Dennis Smith won't be a bad move, but I'm pretty sure the Lakers are probably going to get their guy.
We're gonna wrap up here real quick, but we're going to talk about the top 5 real quick, just to round out. And for any of you that actually have some time, the Selection Sunday is coming up. So, the big dance is coming up. So you get to see these guys play. I definitely urge you to tune in if any of these guys are actually going to be playing. Of course, we talked about Lonzo Ball. We mentioned him at number 2. Markelle Fultz, who's number 1 at Washington. Josh Jackson over at Kansas, of course, another one and done if he does decide to come out. Dennis Smith at NC State, another freshman who is, again, when you come in and you're already NBA ready, of course, the moratorium rule means that you get to have at least a little bit of that experience. And most people go to college. I think this is one of those guys that just went to a program where he could continue to develop himself, but not necessarily stay long enough to where he gets stuck in a program where they want to win a championship or anything over at NC State. And then over with one of my favorite teams, one of my almost alma maters, Florida State, Jonathan Isaac he's a freshman coming out of a team that was in again, out again, tournaments like the NIT. He would show up every single now and then, every now and then in the ACC tournament. But Jonathan Isaacs is a forward, and so that's the 1 through 5. The other 10, the 6 through 10 are going to be flip-flopping back and forth, just depending on how this tournament goes. But I would suggest that everyone tune in to the NCAA playoffs, so that way you can get a better look at who your team may be drafting. I'm hoping that we get a true center.
Well, that right there might be better than going after Lonzo Ball, but I think Lonzo Ball might be the best move for those guys because they need a better point guard than D'Angelo Russell. They need somebody who can help make their guys better. You got to make Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle have to develop into guys that you can build around, and the only way they can do that is if they can get the ball. And the same thing with Clarkson. Clarkson was supposed to be their point guard last season or season before last. Instead, they drafted Russell. Why not think about either moving Russell or moving Clarkson for another pick? But, that's neither here nor there.
We'll see what these teams do come lottery time. NBA draft, June 22nd, and we'll see what happens with the lottery balls and how they may fall. In the meanwhile, just to round up real quick, we're going to do a couple of quick shout-outs. Shout out to to David Blatt for trying to I'm sorry, not David Blatt, Dan Gilbert for trying to put a team together. You tried to help the King out. The King wasn't satisfied. You did more. The King still wasn't satisfied, and you did more, and then someone nearly died. So shout out to trying, and the Cavs continuing to try to do everything that they can. Shout out to Dirk. This is German, Dirk Nowitzki over in Dallas, scoring 30,000. Definitely a great achievement. Personally, I think finally, it seems like the guy's the time, and when he scored his 30,000, he scored all of his points in the first half against, of course, the Lakers. And there's one last shout out that we have. Shout out to my mom. Thanks, Mom, for asking me who I thought was my pick in the NCAA tournament, because I've obviously been tuned into college basketball all season. Not. So good luck to everyone on your brackets. Hopefully you all have your picks together by the time we do the next podcast, which will be on Tuesday of next week. And if you want to tune in, please make sure to tune into the YouTube channel. Of course, it just has my name on it for now. Of course, that's what happens when you're low budget. But Jason, tell us where we could find you at, and if we could find you on Twitter, etc.
You can honestly, that's the only place you can find me. I am literally only on Twitter. You can find me at Snap _shooters SHOOTERS. I'm usually on there crying about an Oklahoma City turnover.
And you can find me at the number 4, the letter F, like the Greek god Apollo, APOLLO. This has been a great podcast, and we got a lot more to talk about coming up. If there's anything that you guys think you're very interested in, or if you or just want to come up on the show, you want to say a word or two, please get at us. Hit us up on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a couple comments. And we'll be signing off. We'll see you again next Tuesday.